Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar from Monarch. We are going to be talking about something that's a very simple but powerful idea connected to effective bidding practice, and something that the best bidding organisations use. They don't kind of complete a proposal, submit it, and then move on to the next opportunity. They pause, reflect, and improve, and use what they've learned to strengthen for the next bid. So today we're talking about incorporating lessons learned into your bidding process. So for organisations like you, this really matters because often bidding takes place in a time when there's a serious pressure put on you as an organisation to be able to complete the bid. You might have a limited internal capacity to do that. You might be working to really tight deadlines and have quite demanding commissioner expectations, or even managing a partnership bid. So all these kinds of need to be juggled alongside, so it's quite easy to kind of move on and not to complete a lessons learned. So today we're going to be talking about how to incorporate that at the right kind of level for your organisation. So before we get into that, for those of you who joined us previously, it's a very similar format today. We'll go through some slides. There's some polls where we can ask you to give us some feedback and to help us shape how we what the next content of the next section that we deliver. So based on kind of where you are and what you're interested in talking more about. So we'll be able to use that. There's also the Q&A section that you can use there. So if there's anything that crops up during the presentation that you're not clear about, we'll be monitoring those and picking up any questions from there. But anything that kind of is more generic and on the topic as a whole, we'll have time at the end to be able to pick those up. So in terms of what we'll be looking at today, we will be looking at what's worked at your recent bids and how to make the most of any learning that you can extract from that. We'll be looking at the typical things that make things difficult or that often crop up as issues in when lessons learned has been completed, the things that kind of quite frequently appear there. And then just how to choose the right kind of lessons learned model to apply in your organisation. We will then move on to once having a process, but then how do you really expand and enhance that so that you are really embedding it in your organisation and getting the maximum out of the lessons that you're able to learn, and by using patterns, spotting and processes to really pull out sort of recurring themes. And then most importantly, having done the lessons learned, how do you then turn them into practical improvements that you can embed, as I say, into your organisation? So our aim is to give you something that is going to be really usable, practical, adaptable, so it's going to be proportionate to your organisation. And as always, if anything isn't clear or you want to talk about it, you can always come back to us and get in touch with us another time. Sorry, as you can see, I'm not in my usual space. We have been here before, so I'm still a bit warm from having hot-footed it from a railway station to get into this room. So I'll just, if I keep needing to take a drink. So I'm Judith Smith, and I'm a director here at Monarch for customer relationships. And I'm joined by Simon, who is going to be helping out particularly around the Q&A and also with the polls, and chipping in whether he thinks he's got a good response and more can add value to what we're talking about. So Simon, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hello. So yeah, I'm a director as well. I focus on the strategy side for our clients. I'll just quickly say a little bit about Monarch as well, very quickly. We are an organisation that only works with charities, essentially, a VCSE sector. We do the end-to-end business development cycle, support. Obviously do the strategy part, but then we go into pipeline development and bid writing, and then obviously there's part lessons learned as well. and we're a team of 9 at the moment. So yeah, that's all I'll say today about this. But I'll be sending a feedback form at the end of this. It'd be great to hear your views on and thoughts on the webinar session as well. So yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I think you said just sending out all the slides as well, and
yeah.
everybody's heard from you earlier this morning because you've been messaging about the social impacts framework. Is that?
Yeah, so that's been released.
Yeah.
The social impact framework. Our last webinar was on frameworks. So there's one open at the moment. So I just popped an email out to everyone this morning. So you should have that in your inbox.
Yeah. So have a look out for that. Yeah. So yeah, exactly as Simon said. So this is Monarch, and I will say kind of what we do is that bid writing, the review and improvement support, and lessons learned really integrates into that as part of the process that is effective and can make a powerful way to enhance how you feel as an organisation in being able to run bids kind of at that individual level, but also organisational level, and that it's something that can really seriously have a good positive impact on your bid outcomes for you. So having something that moves to a process where you can be really confident and you've got repeatable, effective bidding practice that you're constantly looking at, reviewing and improving. So we are straight into our first poll, and the idea of this is to give us a sense of where everyone on the call today is starting from. So we know that most organisations will do some form of reflection at the end of a bid. So this is really kind of like, how do you do that? How do you go about it? And you know, kind of what level is it? Are you working at?
No problem. So there'll be a poll that will pop up in the bottom right corner of your screen. You should see it now. So yeah, just select the one that stands out for you. So you know, we do not usually review them formally. B, we review only them when we lose. C, when we're in formal conversations after in submissions. D, we review wins and losses. And lastly, E, we have a structured lessons learned process already in place. It's about 30 seconds left. Any more votes coming in? A few more coming in. Okay. Any more?
Yep.
I think that's it. All right, I'm going to end it and share it.
Yep.
There we go.
Oh. So it's looking quite evenly spread across the options that we had there. So if I was going to say which one's ahead, it's going to, well, it's even, isn't it, between A and D. So a lot of people on the call aren't currently having any sort of process that they put in place to review in a formal way, but that's also the same as those who undertake reviews whether they win and lose. So yes, there's a bit of a mix of everybody who's here. So what I will do is kind of like talk about why having a process that's really sort of proportionate, that it's not difficult for you to integrate into your organisation. So it's something that's going to be simple and straightforward to do. If you've not been using lessons learned previously, it's going to be achievable to kind of put something in place. And then for those of you who are already kind of undertaking reviews, whether you win or lose, what I'll focus on is so then how you might be able to take them to the next level and what that might look like. So thank you for completing that. That gives me a good sense of where everybody is on today's webinar. So yeah, I think if I move on from here. So why do lessons learned matter? It's once a bid is submitted, you know, everybody is relieved. It's probably been a lot of work. It's been a lot of effort. You've had to really get several people involved in working to often tight deadlines, and in bidding processes can be getting more and more complex in terms of what you have to do and what you have to demonstrate. So we know that bids and applications aren't straightforward to do. And once you've press that submit button, everybody's usually very relieved, and that is understandable. And this is where a lot of organisations will just move on. They've got their business as usual, just waiting for them to get back to it. So it's very tempting not to take the time out to reflect. But in doing that, there is a missed opportunity there of a really important part of the process, and that is kind of like taking the learning that you can extract from your experience, from any feedback you receive from commissioners or funders, and then using it to make sure that you either continue to do what's working really well for you, or that you address areas where there's some scope for improvement. Because if you don't have that time out and kind of that reflection period, there's a good possibility that you might be making the same difficulties for yourself. So you might incur the same sort of internal problems again and again. You might find that you don't have information to hand that would make life a lot easier for you. It might be that you're having conversations that continually start too late. So whether that's with your finance team, your finance director, or whether it's external partners that you're involving in your proposal. So it's kind of like you will not be clear that you'll kind of have those at hand, and that you're getting the most optimum kind of way of aligning it for you to make things easier for you and anybody who's involved in preparing the bid for you. And that might mean that overall your proposal plan is going to be unclear. So a proposal plan is basically some sort of document or documents that set out how you are going to manage the whole process, who's going to be involved, who's got sign-off, the timelines involved. It might have content plans and allocate questions to different people. So it could be that there's something within that plan that's unclear, so people aren't working in a coordinated and the most efficient way, and you haven't got things scheduled and timed when they are going to make you be able to progress in a really timely and effective way. And it could mean that the same people continue to be overloaded with bidding. Particularly if you're a smaller organisation, it might be that a lot of work is falling on you constantly, and that you have pressures, and that you're not having an opportunity to really think about how you could lighten your load and make things a lot easier and a lot smoother for you. But also, if you've got wider team, it's kind of like understanding whether the way that your proposal plan and the way that you're approaching it is how it's impacting on other individuals and other teams. So you can understand whether there's any overload there, or whether it is something that's well within the capacity of everybody who's involved. You're not then able to use any feedback, you say, that you receive from the funder, where that's available to you, win or lose. So say we always think it's really important to get that feedback whether you win or lose. If you've won, then you really want to understand what it was that kind of differentiated you from any other bidder or any other applicant. What enabled the funder or the grant making trust to be able to allocate their funding to you, so that you can do that and you can carry on and repeat doing that. But also, if they've highlighted that you've got some areas where there could be improvement, you really understand them, and that you're able to put plans in place to make the improvements that are going to make a difference to you when you come to either apply or bid again with the same people. But also, it should be transferable to any funding that you're pursuing. So today it's really about making sure that you have a really simple learning loop embedded into your process. It's not something that we think should be really bureaucratic and difficult to do, and it's not something that would be kind of looking at apportioning any blame if something had gone seriously wrong, or something that would be kind of like a personal reflection. I think often when many of us are involved in a bid, particularly if we're the incumbent, for example, we're very invested in the outcome of that, and it's easy to become quite take things really personally. If only I'd done this, if only I'd done X, I could have made a difference. So this again is about something that's really simple, proportionate, but also is very sort of systems focused rather than individual. So yeah, about setting up a simple learning loop. So here we are looking at what would count as a lesson to learn. As I say, for us, it's win or lose. Try and think about what you can do around undertaking a lessons learned. Even a near miss, I think you're going to really understand what it was that would close that gap for you next time. So it's really enables you to get in a place where you can apply your knowledge and your learning and put improvements in place and be a lot more confident next time you approach a bidding. So it's going to be repeatable. So you're going to have things that you just know that you just run smoothly, and every time you do a bid, because you've applied some lessons learned, it's just going to run a lot smoother for you. If you've experienced a really difficult submission, that can teach you a lot, particularly if you've found it really stressful and challenging as an organisation. What was it that made it feel like that? What could you do about it? And how can you make it a much more positive experience next time? And that's partly about improving as an organisation, but also, a big part of what we're all going to be concerned about is the well-being of our staff or volunteers or trustees that are involved in this. So is there anything that we can do to make it less stress-inducing that really is going to help with the well-being of the individuals? So, yeah, it's about really having a look at understanding about how it works for you as an organisation, the people involved. It could be something that's related to a decision that you made on bidding. So I don't know if anybody was able to join us at one of our earlier webinars, which was around bid, no bid decision making. It's a good way of just double checking that your decision was the right decision and that you are putting effort and resources into pursuing the right market and the right bidding opportunity. So you can close that loop, as I say, around your decision gating at that bid, no bid, go, no go point as well, just to make sure and double check that you are putting your effort where it's going to get the best return for you. Most tenders there will give you really good feedback in terms of how you scored on the individual questions, and they will do that in comparison to the winning bid. So if you won, you can really see what made you stand out from anybody else who was bidding alongside you. But if you didn't win, then you can see what it was that the winning bidder did in comparison to your own proposal, and you can learn a lot from that in terms of how you might close the gap in the future, and it builds up your knowledge around your competition you have, but also you get to learn about what's really going to make a difference to commissioners, what they're expecting to see in similar sorts of questions. It also means that you can, take lessons that your internal team can use and learn from, and in a really practical way. And that could be a whole range of things around their individual learning, or just kind of what would enable them and what would set them up to be able to do their best work. So yes, it's a good kind of what can you learn internally, as I say, for your organisation. And every opportunity can teach you something. We do lessons learned here at Monarch. So when we've supported an organisation around bidding, we will kind of do our own internal lessons learned as well, and kind of have reflection points so that we can look at how we improve our services. We also look at the scoring that the client received for anything that we helped with, and we use that to keep, make sure that we continue to learn in exactly the same way. So I think that is really sort of the value of reflection, and just kind of like really looking across all aspects of what you could use and what you can learn from. We know that for the voluntary community sector organisations, the reality of bidding can be a real challenge. You've got a lot of strengths there when, in terms of the experience that you'll have in being able to write grant applications that you can transfer and scale up to different and adapt to different situations. So you've got kind of a lot of capacity and not internal knowledge, but it might be that you don't necessarily have the people that would make it a lot easier for you because you're having to operate so leanly. So you may have really limited bid capacity that you can draw on. Internally, obviously, you've got options to be able to work with an organisation like Monarch that can enhance that for key bids that you might have. And to help you. But if you're dealing with sort of a situation where you've got very limited capacity to be able to help, is likely to be the reality that most voluntary community sector organisations have, unless you're very lucky. It also means that your information, your insight and intelligence could be spread across different teams because you're very much sort of built around projects, for example. So that can be difficult to coordinate when you're trying to get the best evidence and the best information together to put into a bid. It could mean that you've still having to deal with, say, all that business as usual work because there's just nowhere else to go. You've still got to kind of keep that going. So that can mean that you've got other service pressures, you've got other deadlines, you've got other commitments that you're trying to meet alongside bid deadlines. It means that you're having to maybe make some quick and agile decisions, and that can sometimes be difficult to do if you're having to kind of coordinate across your trustee board, or that you kind of need other colleagues, finance, for example, to kind of like give a really quick, short notice input when they're already busy and doing other things. As I said earlier, if you've got partners involved and it's a kind of a consortium bid, or you're working with multiple other organisations who's going to be part of your delivery team, your supply chain, getting the information you need from them is often a challenge. They might not necessarily feel the pressure in quite the same way as you do. They might not understand what you require in the way that you do. And it could be that you're having to chase and do a lot of kind of coordination to get what you need out of the partners that are involved. Your decision making on your sign-off arrangements can often be something that stall, because it can be difficult to be able to keep people at that sign-off level engaged and fully understanding all the way along the line. So you'll find that you could be asked questions at the end that are going to hold you up, or that kind of like might make significant difference to what you're putting together. That's a quite common aspect of bidding that we see as well, and that can lead to sort of any reviews and sign-off feeling really rushed at the end, and often you're feeling that you might not have done the best bid possible because you've kind of had to compromise it in some way. So we just know that those are likely to be sort of the things that are going on in your organisation to a greater or lesser degree. And I think that what the kind of the way that lessons learned can really be much more powerful, as I say, is if you're able to extract from them and see that any problems or any challenges that you have are system problems and not people problems. Because the last thing we want is kind of to be doing, anybody to be feeling really bad that they let you down, or that you're looking for blame, which I know most of you won't do, but I guess it does happen. So it's really about taking that personal element out of it and really thinking of improvements and challenges and issues and any sort of blockers that you might have experienced at that system level. What that means is that you can really focus on your processes. You've got clearer processes, and that means if you've got a good, clear process, it's something that repeats and just kind of like just drops into place every time. You've got decisions happening when you need them. You have everything you need, more to hand maybe, and it's a lot clearer in terms of like the ownership and who's doing what. So it's kind of like find your process that's going to enable you to focus in on those systems in a way that fits for your organisation and doesn't become an extra tier or kind of add to the burden that's involved during bidding windows. So I think we're ready for the next poll, and this is going to help us in working out which is the best kind of model that you could apply to your organisation around lessons learned on this. So we'll run the poll, and then what we'll do is have a look at the scores, and then that will alter the kind of the order that I do the next section in. So yeah, if you
okay, again in the bottom right.
Yep.
This obviously influences which direction we go with the rest of the presentation. So you're reactive, inconsistent, or developed and mature. Any last fates?
Oh, Simon, I might need you to read this out because the poll's not showing.
Okay. No bother. Any last votes? Okay, I'm going to end it now.
Oh, yeah, it's refreshed.
Yeah.
Fine now.
There we go. Showing results.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. So we've got one that's a little bit further ahead than the others, which you see that is about developing and having more of a mature process, if you like, embedded and in place, and that you, when you are bidding or applying for funding but more regularly, and it's now about how you then use lessons learned and build into the way that you work in a much more strategic way, and that you can look for patterns and how you might develop that. So that's really helpful. So what I will do is I'll jump ahead to our Model C and talk about that, but then I'll come back just so that you can see what A and B look like, and then obviously, as Simon said, we're going to be sending out the slides so you'll be able to have a look at them in a little bit more detail as well, in your own time. And obviously you've got the option to always come back to us if you need to. So I'm going to jump ahead to C. So what Model C is looking like is about turning that learning that you can extract from each opportunity into something that really enhances how you approach bid development and business development in your organisation. So it's best for organisations that are going to be bidding regularly, and that could include applying for funding from grant making trusts, as for example, as well. But it could be something that you could apply to any situation where you're looking for funding, whether you're doing looking for partnerships with corporates, for example. You can still conduct lessons learned around any sort of opportunity that's linked to bringing income into your organisation. So the beauty of Model C is that you're not solely looking at individual submissions. You are looking at to be able to embed a process that's going to look across multiple bidding experiences that you've had, and outcomes that you've had. So it's looking across and not just at one bid. And you're starting to ask much more strategic questions. So as you can see, it's still following the same kind of cycle of good bid development process. You're going to have a pipeline that you're looking at reviewing of where those opportunities might be. You'll have a bid, no bid system that's quite I'll say structured, but I mean in terms of like something that you do routinely is that you make bid, no bid decisions, go, no go decisions on which opportunities to pursue, which are the bonds that are going to be best for you. You'll have a really sort of clear win strategy in place for the bids that are particularly the ones that are going to be strategically important or high value to you. So you're going to know and have really thought about what you could do in advance of the bidding window starting around doing capture planning. And capture planning is kind of an industry name, but it encompasses a whole range of activities that kind of lead up to that bidding window opening. So it could be to do with how you manage your relationship with the commissioner or the funder, how you engage partners, how you look at the competition. Is you really thinking about what's going to set you apart from any other bidder, and also about how you're actually in a very practical way going to manage the proposal. So you'll have a really clear win strategy in place. You're probably going to have a good system in place for being able to make the most of the evidence and impact that you can demonstrate and that you can leverage to use in bids, and that you've got that at hand, and it's something that is going to serve you on multiple bids. So it's not just something that you scramble to get together for a single bid, put it to one side, forget it, move on, and then next time you're having to go, start again from fresh. You're probably going to have a way of being able to have a good evidence bank, and I'll come on to more about that a little bit later. You'll be much more systematically tracking your win and loss results. So you won't just be looking singly, let's say you'll be looking across, and then you're probably going to have some sort of system for undertaking review. We've suggested quarterly there. Maybe you've got a finance and risk committee, or you've got a sub team that is responsible for bids and income generation, and you might want to be using them and their expertise and their knowledge that they will build up to undertake reviews of how, and to look at how you can improve going forward. It might be that you're able then to have a training and coaching or mentoring plan in place for members of your team who are going to be doing the bidding, because you'll understand what it might be that they would really enhance their ability to be able to bid in the future. So as I say, it's really about starting to have something that is much more strategic. The questions you're asking, are we bidding in the right service areas? Are we repeatedly weak in particular areas? Are we losing marks on a particular topic, for example, on mobilisation or on quality? Are you choosing the opportunities that are really playing to your strengths as an organisation? And making sure that you feel that you're confident that you are making the most of your strengths and that they're coming across in the bids and the proposals you put forward. And it's also about, are you having enough capacity? Are you building the right capacity within your organisation and team that is going to keep pace with how you want to grow in the future, or how you want to really position yourself strategically? So have you got that bidding capability that you need? So shifting more towards that cross bid viewpoint, but also starting to ask much more strategic questions is a really good way to be able to embed good, solid lessons learned processes. And taking that, a really effective way to be able to then very quickly understand and analyse what you're seeing from that tracking is to use something around being able to spot patterns more easily. So after every bid, say if you're tracking the outcome, it's like, could you expand that and to capture information that is going to give you much more learning that you can analyse and to look out and find patterns for. So your record system might be that you're recording the opportunity, the outcome. You might want to be looking there at recording the score you received or any feedback that you received from the funder or the commissioner. You'll be noting down, it has to be a lot of detail, but just try and capture the key points of what worked well and what was effective within your organisation, but also what you might have found difficult around each opportunity that you've dealt with. And you can then use that to see if there's any repeated recurring theme that's cropping up. So if I don't know how you're going to do this, but often a spreadsheet is a really quick and simple way of doing it that everybody can access and keep updated. If you have a drop down, for example, with some tags for themes. So if you're able to say that what worked well or what was difficult for you was the evidence that you had, if you tag it in the same way, then you can see if that is cropping up for you across multiple bids, then you know it's something that you probably want to be putting some more attention into. But it could be that any of these other theme tags, so these are the ones that are commonly quite useful to have, to use, was something linked to pricing that you want to note as a pattern? Is there something to do with the roles and who was involved? Was it something to do with the buyer's understanding? did your message that you were wanting to land with them really come across? Did the buyer understand what you were saying, what you were proposing, and did they feel confident in your organisation? So was there something going on there that is either something that was really effective or that was an area for improvement? Was it to do with your mobilisation plans? Was it your sign-off, review processes? You know, was it partnerships? By having those sort of ability to put those tags in, it's very visual as well, particularly if you're clever enough to kind of colour code these drop out down, is that you can then start to very quickly just spot where recurring themes are appearing. And the value in that is that you're no longer looking at one isolated bid, you're looking across multiple bids, and that is going to enable you to see a pattern, and that tells you where to improve in a much more strategic way, and it stops the lessons learned from, say, becoming something that is quite anecdotal, something that might just sit with one or two people. By having a system like this, you're embedding it and making it accessible to your organisation. So it's kind of future-proofing the system as well. So if you've got any changes in personnel, for example, you've not lost any of the learning that might have been there. You've been able to capture it and to use it to be able to show you the way that you can best make improvements for the future. So I've got an example here of how spotting a pattern might work. So if you've got, say, 3 bids that you're able to look across and record them in some way, you're going to be able to spot whether there is any theme that's coming through on that. Or even if there's not a theme, is it just that there's something that kind of breaks down each time that you can still learn something from that. So imagine that you had 3 bids and they all had very similar feedback, and what it showed you, or where it showed up, I guess, through your bid, was that you got some low scores on particular questions around that topic. It might be that within that question, one of the comments from the commissioner and their evaluation team, that your case studies were weak and they kind of didn't have the impact that they were looking for. It could be that you'd had a real scramble, that you'd had a bit of a problem to find the right evidence to back up your statements in your proposal, and that had meant that you were making some quite generic claims, which was then, as I say, impacting on how that question was scored for you. So you're able then to see if that's something that's appearing across multiple bids, that you've got a pattern there that maybe when you think about how your evidence is gathered and how you assemble it so that it's going to be most effective for you in being able to apply it into a bidding situation. And the solution to that could be that you set up a very simple evidence bank. And by that, it could be as complicated or as simple as you want it to be, really. At a simple level, it could just be that you have a folder, a single place where anything to do with bidding is stored, but also you've got a folder within that that's all about evidence that you can use. And that would be, for example, case stories and examples that you have. It could be impact data, it could be information about any partners that you work with. It could also be that your local need and statistics and for example, council strategy documents are all kind of held there alongside your most recent company accounts and your company and charity numbers, so that you've got a really go-to place where everything is held. It should make it a lot easier and simpler just to be able to grab the things that are kind of repeat stuff that you would need, for example, to be able to attach your company accounts. Just saves a bit of time and headache, but also you could start, so if you've got examples of questions that where you've scored really well, you could store those, for example, and have them so that you know that if you get a question again that asks you about your EDI and how you embed it in your organisation, you know you've had a really good feedback on a response to that before, so you can just pull it up and think about how you might be able to use it again for a future bid. So it's having that single place helps. If you think about how you have subfolders organised, how you label files, that just again just makes it a lot easier and quicker to be able to do. So it doesn't need to be much more than having that one place to go to. Other organisations might have something more complicated where you're kind of using labels and you're kind of having collating and having a system that is kind of much more nuanced. Again, that's probably, if you're doing a lot of bidding, that tends to make more sense to have something more complicated. So wherever you are, whatever you think is going to be most practical for you to be able to set up and maintain, then I think it's just go with that. And it also means that you've got a really good place where you can have your internal reporting, you can log commissioner conversations as well. You might have where you do some of your competitor analysis, where you might have your partnership discussions as well. So yeah, just kind of like things like that would just make it a lot more streamlined and smooth for you, and provide you with useful insight and intel that you can build up that you can then apply to answering evidence questions. So if you'd be able to spot that as a pattern. Got another one here. I won't spend quite so long talking about it because you've kind of got the idea now. So for example, if the pattern that you spotted here is that there was an issue around late operational input. And what that happened is that the mobilisation delivery sections in your bids, you recognised internally that they were, they felt really pressured to do and not necessarily your best work as an organisation. But it might also be showing up in that, there's lack of clarity from staff about who was doing it, who was responsible. It could be that the template you'd used wasn't effective, wasn't communicating in a way that came across strongly to whoever's going to be scoring or assessing your proposal. It could be that you brought other teams in, such as finance or the operational team, late, so their ability to be able to sense check what you were saying in the rest of the bid once it was into mobilisation was a bit too late, because they hadn't been involved at an early enough stage to say how easy it's going to be to actually stand up if the bid was successful. And it could also mean that you're at risk as an organisation because you've signed off and you're still not really confident that you're going to be able to mobilise and stand something up. So those kind of areas where it might show up. And after that, your learning might be that you've involved a couple of key teams, a couple of key people too late. And that is something that you can then look at how you address that in the future by having maybe some earlier checkpoints, some early decision points, some processes that are going to help you to get your pricing information together sooner. So those kind of things is sort of examples where you might be able to spot those patterns and then being able to identify sort of real tangible improvements that you can use next term. So yeah, so it's really about being able to use those patterns and then turn them into improvements that you can embed and incorporate in how you approach all your bid development or your business development processes. Typical areas that we see, I've probably touched on most of these already, but the way that they can really help you, as I say, is around the evidence bank, having that go-to place. It could be around the decision-making points that you have across the bidding window, either before, choosing which markets to go for, choosing which bids to go for, choosing whether to actually bid once something's going to come live, and then that final sign-off. It could be that you're able to see that you need to do more around improving your service descriptions so that you're using the right language that's going to really resonate for that particular funder and evaluator, and that could be that maybe it's you're applying to some recent ones that we've been talking about, the heritage lottery, for example, the performing arts and kind of arts work, working with children and young people, they've often got their own sort of terminology attached to them. So if they're not your core areas of work, it's like, do you really understand how to talk about your service in a way that is going to land with the commissioner, and not demonstrate that you're not familiar with that particular client group? It could be that it's around your mobilisation planning. It could be around your partners and your partnership model. Have you got the right partners involved? Are they delivering for you what you need them to do? Do they really support you when you're bidding and then into delivery? Is there a training need that you can look at and address? And are you really positioning yourself strongly with the commissioner? Are you in a way that might, going into a bid that you will view very favourably, that you kind of like might be in a preferred position because they already know you, and because you're able to know them, you're able to talk in ways and use the language that is going to really resonate with them. So you're going to be in a much stronger position. So yeah, what can you take? What can you take for the learning? What patterns can you identify? And then how can you use those to improve? So that's kind of the model C in terms of like having a system that's going to capture learning across all your bids in one place, so it's just not isolated for single bids, that enables you to pick up on themes and patterns, and then is really going to be a quick and easy way for you to identify areas to improve, but also areas where you're really effective as well, because you don't want to lose sight of those. So if you're able to see where your strengths are, then you know that you want to keep those going, you want to keep those in place, and have that insight as well in terms of and recognition about what you're really doing well. So I think that was, I think we've got one more slide on the patterns. Yeah, so I think we've probably covered a lot of this, and this is really kind of the things that we encounter and talk to lots of organisations that we're supporting with when we're coaching and looking at how they might improve their bidding practice. And as I said before, it's about a really good evidence bank. It can just save so much time and make life so much easier if you're able to have something that does that for you. It also means that you can share it with organisations like us. So if you've got somebody external coming in to support you with your bid, it means that you could share something with them, and they're not so reliant on you having to come up with all the answers. They've got a go-to place as well. Say clearer decision making. It's one of the reasons why we've ran earlier session around sort of how to incorporate that within your organisation, so you've got good bid no bid decisions, making sure that you're getting the right input when you need it from the teams and key people are going to be needing to contribute to your bid, that everybody's got really clear roles, they're owning what they need to do, there's accountability for what they do, they understand when, how and what is required from them. You've got good mobilisation planning as well, because obviously you don't want to be successful in a bid and then find that it's like, oh, what have we done? However we're going to make this work? Nobody wants to be in that position. So it could be that there's things that you can put in place earlier, and that's going to strengthen how you then able to stand up from day one of a project. Having that better buyer understanding and incorporating that. If you've got a good lead time going into a bid, making the most of that to do some capture planning, kind of that preparation work, and really getting to understand what is going to make your proposal stand out to anybody who's going to be evaluating it. And it could be around recognising that you might need to have more support for your team, and that could be bringing new people in. It could be looking at how you coach and develop the staff that you've got, and just enable them to do their best work. So those are the kind of things that we frequently see coming up, and that we talk to organisations when we're coaching them about how to make improvements, so that they have a good system and they can do things in a much more repeatable, calmer, structured way, so that not every bid is a drama, that you've got a lot of good systems and processes in place that are just going to make it a lot easier for you. So I think so I'm just going to jump back to talk about very briefly Model A. So Model A is kind of that organisations that might not be bidding frequently, or that you might be bidding reactively and not have, approach it in a really systematic way. There's still a lot of merit in having something embedded around doing a lessons learned. It's a good way of helping you to prevent it always feeling like there's a bit of a scramble going on. As I say, that you've got a lot of pressure because of deadlines, and the ability to make decisions in a really effective, quick way. That means you can then get on to putting all your effort into the content that you're going to be putting forward in your bid. It'll be really clear about who's going to do what. You might have a simple one-page bid plan just as a communication tool, so you know exactly what timetable you're working to. You'll know who's doing what. For example, if you're assigning out particular questions to somebody, it's documented that X is going to answer question number 7 on here and provide that by X date, and something as basic as that for you. And it might, you could even sketch out some elevator pitch version of what your proposal and what your offer is going to be. Simple plan, really good tool as well for those who are involved in the bidding, but also something that you can share with trustees as well to help them understand what's going to be happening. It also means that you might be able to just find ways that you can gather evidence a lot earlier, and that's going to help you, and then just to have a simple review after it. We've got Model B is about how you then take that and make it much more repeatable. So you've got a really good, solid go, no go process. Your proposal plan might be a bit more detailed. You're going to have maybe a clearer roles and responsibilities, maybe a RACI, so responsible, accountable, consulted and informed. So it's kind of like, you might even do something as complex as that. You can have a good evidence bank. You're going to get input from the people that you need it from at an early date, and you're going to have good sign-off review processes, and you're going to really start to in a routine, repeatable way to log the lessons learned. So that consistency and that ability to have that helps reduce pressures. So those are the kinds of models that you would have. And so I think we're just about reaching the end of the slides here. So in terms of what I'm hoping you will take away today is maybe thinking about how in the next 30 days you could improve any lessons learned process that you already have. So you could have a look at those different models, A, B and C again, and then think what you might be able to do that would put something in place that would enable you to embed them and to have them as part of the way that you work. You might want to take away and review a recent bid if you've not done that, and get either on your own or maybe a few of you, it's probably more effective to see if you can identify some top 3 lessons that you can extract from that experience. You could try adding the themes and the tags to it, and agree some practical actions that you feel you can embed and take on in your organisations. So what could you do? What would be a quick win for you? What is something that you can act on, and that's going to be practical and is going to make a difference? And then obviously, because we want to have an action focus, we want to make sure that action's got somebody who's going to own it, who's going to do it, and when are they going to do it by. And also, in part of that review is then to think about how you are going to use it when the next opportunity comes along. So any small change that you're able to make, any way that you're able to build in consistency to what's your approach to this, is really going to make a difference and build your confidence when you approach bidding. It change the experience that everybody feels as being part of a bid team, but also that it should make a real definite impact on your ability to win and secure funding and bids in the future, because you've got that improvement plan. You're constantly looking at how to enhance it. So yeah, so those kind of things to do, what you might be able to look at having in place. As a takeaways, I'd like you to have fun today. Yeah, so I think that was all kind of wanted to really say around lessons learned. We've got a few minutes now for some questions and discussion. So I don't know if anybody's got any of those, if you want to pop them into the Q&A section, and I will see if I'll get the answers for you if I can. And if I can't, we'll definitely come back to you with some.
I think we're coming to the end anyway, but I'll be sending out a feedback form. Like I said, be great. Just take a minute of your time. Be great if you could fill that in. That'd be really helpful for us. Looks like we're quite a quiet group today, so no questions coming in, Judith.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I think it is just. I think the biggest message that we want to put across around this is make it practical, make it your own. Have something that you know that will work for you. Don't over-engineer something if you don't really need to. So I think it's just that ability to have it being proportionate to you as an organisation and to fit into your structure and any sort of governance layers and tiers that you might have, whether you've got as I say, whether there's a committee team that supports around bidding, whether it's a finance and risk committee, whether it's some trustee subgroup, or whether things are going straight to your board. It really needs to kind of work across the whole of your organisation, and if you have that systematic approach as well, is when you might, I suggested that you do the quarterly review, and that is going to, for those who are more actively involved, to be really useful. But you might want to do an annual roundup, for example, that you present to your trustee board, because that will help them in their strategic planning as part of your business planning cycle, or when they're looking at training and development needs, either for themselves as trustees or for staff team or volunteer team if you've got volunteers involved in your fundraising. So it's really about what can you do, simple, proportionate, that is going to kind of give you insight and intelligence that your organisation can take on as development actions, and that you can implement in a really practical way that is going to make a big difference to your practice when bidding, the outcome and the results you achieve, but also how it feels in going through it, because we know bidding's stressful and it stretches even the best of us often to be able to respond to the timelines. Yes, I think that was it. Other than say, then please have a look at Simon's email earlier, and it links back to the framework session that we did, and that opportunity that is live at the moment around a framework that is really geared up for the voluntary community sector and social enterprises to engage with. I think on that, I don't know if you covered this, Simon, in it. It's quite a new framework. So if you look at the call-offs from it, you might feel a bit despondent. But what I'm saying, you'll be getting in at an early stage on it, and we are anticipating, and the hub that's running it is anticipating it, that it's going to grow and really expand and be a much more kind of lively framework. But I know some people have looked at it and kind of gone, well, nothing's happened as a result of getting on it. I think it's recognising that it's going to be something that is likely to grow and develop. Slightly off topic then.
Well, thank you everyone, and hopefully see you again soon. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you everyone.